Okay, good afternoon. I hope you had a great lunch. We're now entering the afternoon session. Of course, this is under the auspices of the Caribbean Risk Management Academy, the fourth Caribbean Risk Management Conference. We're going on to our first afternoon panel discussion now, which will focus on finance and technology. And panelists include the following. We heard him earlier on. In his position as CEO for Hitachi System Security, Mr. Anthony Subero has executive oversight for executing the strategy approved by the board of directors and the overall performance of the group. He specializes in strategic planning, operations management, business process re-engineering, enterprise risk management, IT operations, operational risk management, project management, IT security, business continuity management, corporate security, anti-money laundering, compliance, and internal audit. Let's welcome Mr. Anthony Subero. You could do it a round of applause, you know. It doesn't cost you anything.
Thank you so much. And I know it's right after lunch, right? So yesterday I had a...
Well, let me introduce you as the panel first now.
Okay, sorry, sir. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. Our next panelist is no stranger to these sorts of fora. Maria Daniel is a partner in the strategic and transactions practice based in Trinidad and Tobago, but works across the Caribbean. Maria has focused over the last 3 years on digital strategy and transformation, assisting clients to transform business models through customer-centric experiences enabled by digital solutions. She's also leading sustainability services for EY Caribbean and is part of the EY Global Sustainability team, focusing on clients' ESG initiatives and assisting clients with creating long-term value strategy through sustainable initiatives. While financial services is a key sector for Maria, she also works closely with the entrepreneurial sector and family business. Let's welcome Maria Daniel. Our next panelist will join us virtually, and he is Michael Hamilton. Michael commands a proven track record for directing technology and business process reengineering projects to advance corporate performance, profitability, and efficiency for public and private sector entities. Michael builds, trains, and spearheads top-performing teams that drive business success and secure achievements for the corporate mission. He's a natural leader, and can-do attitude is very infectious. His strong people skills provide that essential ingredients in helping to get projects successfully completed on time and within budget. He also has the exceptional ability to work in partnership with customers, business partners, and vendors. He's entirely focused on solutions rather than problems. He's always looking for new and better ways of doing things and is sure to be a trailblazer wherever he finds himself. He's a self-motivator, energetic with an eye for detail and a customer-centric focus and a never-ending drive to get the job done. His education includes an MBA with distinction from UWI St. Augustine campus, BS in Computer and Management Studies, University of Technology, Certified Information Systems Auditor, Project Managerial Professional, and Enterprise Risk Management Certificate. Let's welcome virtually Michael Hamilton.
Hello, good afternoon.
And also a young man who's making quite a bit of waves across the Caribbean, and he is Mr. Aldwyn. He graduated from Georgia College and State University with a bachelor's degree in computer science and a master's of computer applications from the University of Georgia. He's from, of course, Trinidad and Tobago, from the quiet town of Point Fortin. He's the founder and CEO of WePay, which provides innovative solutions for e-commerce, online payments, and facilitating digital transactions for the unbanked in Trinidad and Tobago. He's extended the service to other countries, including Jamaica, Guyana, and St. Lucia, where he's devoted 90% of his practice to a cashless future for the last 5 years. He has extensive experience in unusual and innovative financing. Let's welcome Mr. Aldwyn L. Wayne. And the moderator for this session, we would have heard earlier on, please welcome Ambassador Ralph Thomas. Over to you, Ambassador Thomas.
So at this point, my duty as moderator is to keep the conversation flowing and to engage our participants. And our kickoff speaker is Anthony Subero. So Anthony, I'll ask you to...
Thank you so much, Ambassador. So as about to share, yesterday evening, Ken and I were having a couple of beverages. And he basically said, you know, your passion around fintech, I wanted to lead the discussion. So I wouldn't be talking to you about anything else anymore, Ken. Over the last 6 years, digital innovations and trends in financial technology or the fintech industry have been revolutionizing how people, financial organizations, and banks manage their money. Modern advances have drastically changed how people engage in their finances and their payments, centered on a cashless environment that expands to the non-banked and or underbanked citizens. Fintech companies are on a path of enhancing their own value and growth and building a global reputation in providing such services. Financial technology is moving and automating the processes and services within organizations and countries. These challenges push our imagination in ways and encourage unparalleled growth. A survey recently conducted in 2021, revealed that the fintech market has the potential to grow to 26.5 trillion by the end of this year, growing at a compound annual growth rate of 6%. The value that fintechs bring to any country, with the right environment, regulations, and incentives are recorded and proven, ranging from increased job opportunities, economic growth, and what I like to call building a globalized society. However, such benefits present challenges, and my staff would always tell you I call it the yin and yang of progress. And I will share with you what I believe are the top 5. Digital trust. How do you develop the confidence within the digital offering to the consumer, given the increasing cyber threat landscape? 2, establishing the right regulations and ensuring compliance, inclusive of improving requirements for ease of doing business, such as regulations must also be anticipatory and forward-thinking. 3, developing the required skill sets and to ensure there's a sustainable talent pool to support the fintech industry in the region. 4, optimizing big data and AI integration. We spoke a bit about that this morning. How do you balance this with the relevant security, privacy, and ethics standards that are needed? And 5, how do we shift the consumer acceptance or adoption in a society that is significantly cash-based to one that is cashless? In Trinidad and Tobago's Road to Recovery plan, developed in the early stages of the pandemic, the adoption of digital technology was seen as a strategic enabler to come out of the other side of this pandemic, and in fact has been adopted by most governments in the region. There's no doubt fintechs will form a significant part towards this objective. Locally in Trinidad and Tobago, through the International Financial Center of Trinidad and Tobago, in 2020, the Fintech Association of Trinidad and Tobago was formed. We're happy to have the president here, but I'm going to quote her, all right? Fintech adoption is key for change to take place to increase financial inclusion and to address our unique societal issues. Fintech isn't just about sending money from me to you. This is just about, it isn't about making life easier. It's also about solving significant issues in our society. And I think it's definitely would be a course of discussion in terms of our panel exchange. Change has to take place, and it has to take place now. Let's do our part. I could not agree any stronger with Maria's comment. The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, the Trinidad Stock Exchange, and the Financial Intelligence Unit of Trinidad and Tobago all have established policies around fintechs. And in fact, they have established a steering committee in this regard. And just talking recently with the senator there, he also indicated there's a further thrust around the regulations. For Trinidad and Tobago, there seemed to have been some advancement, but maybe not enough. The recent Joint Select Committee, I believe, was May 27, 2022, indicate there's huge opportunities for improvement. But there are some success stories. The gentleman here with BP has been able to overcome some of these challenges. I would also recommend that the audience take a look at that joint selection video. I found it was very informative and insightful. In closing, I believe that fintech can add a value to the country I'm really not convinced about the ability of scale only for Trinidad and Tobago. So I think there's a regional context that we're going to drive this moving forward. And I really look forward to a very open discourse in terms of how do we optimize financial technology to grow the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Anthony. I think we move on to our next.
But I will just learn from what Anthony said. And I actually probably that at the launch of, we were looking at launching that has to be at least, didn't have COVID. We were not wearing masks. So that tells you how long ago it was. And have we solved those issues? No, we haven't. And, when you look at the Joint Select Committee, and there's been a lot of, I would say, traction coming from that, more than I expected. I understand from Aldwyn that we even have memes coming out of it. But what we have to think about is what are we really trying to achieve? And I think the problem I see with fintech is people are jumping on the bandwagon of what the rest of the world has done. And we're not really focusing on, first of all, what are our real problems? And what are the solutions that we are looking for? So everybody jumps on the payment space. Yes, we need solutions in the payment space. And Anthony just mentioned it. This is a very small, we're one of the bigger population sizes, but we're still small to make a business case for fintechs to really thrive. So for me, the focus should be on regional integration. And what will a regional integration do for us? One, we could know the headache if you try to move money across the Caribbean. Forget outside, just within the Caribbean. We have a problem that if someone wants to do business and they want to look at the Caribbean as a region, the problems you have to deal with how many central banks, how many regulations, how many different institutions. So we ourselves as a community are not positioning ourselves to be competitive. We have very bright people here. I was just telling Anthony over the lunch break. We have the entrepreneur of the program in EY. It's a global program. I sat at a table with a digital solution provider. And he said, where are you all from? And I said, Trinidad. He said, oh my gosh, 2 of my best programmers come from your country. They sit in Trinidad. I've never met them, but they're one of the most brilliant people I have. Again, Google, when they want to hire people to do look at their bugs and solve it, there's a Trinidadian that's doing that. So we have bits and pieces, but in order to get this really moving, we have to look at regional integration. We have to look at the ecosystem. So it's not just having a solution. WePay is bringing some solutions, but we need finance for these startups. We need to get capital into the sector. We need to get the right regulations, the right legislation, the right school programs. And more importantly, we need the community to adopt. Unless we had COVID, most companies were not looking at digital solutions as they should. Most companies didn't have online solutions. So everybody then rushed to get it going. So I will close on saying fintech can bring a lot to the problems we have with the ease of doing business. It can really solve regional problems. And again, when I did that quote, let's look at crime and what cash really does in enhancing crime or really encouraging crime. So I think we need to look at fintech as a solution for some broader problems that we have as a region. I hand it back to you, moderator.
Hey, that'd be great. Thank you so much. We can do better than that. Give her a big hand. Thank you for those perspectives. And we have with us a virtual speaker also, Michael Hamilton. And Michael, could you join us? It's your turn.
Sure, thank you. I'm just going to borrow from some persons. One, Mia Motley would have spoken recently at the some meeting with the governments from the Americas. And she highlighted the challenges that the region has with banking. For example, Belize has a significant challenge where I think probably only 2 of their banks were not given negative ratings by the US, which, as you know, significantly impacts how they can transact business against national borders. The Hitachi CEO spoke, and he spoke about 5 things: regulation, trust, talent pool, AI, big data versus privacy and ethics and consumer acceptance. And the keynote speaker this morning spoke about this whole transformation and resilience, and about entities bouncing back, because, as the speaker just before me spoke, lots of entities were not prepared to do anything online prior to COVID. So COVID, from that aspect, as far as advancing the digital agenda, was a blessing. Notice I said from that aspect. However, if you go back now to the keynote speakers address this morning about bouncing back versus bouncing forward, a lot of the entities are now looking again at returning to normalcy. So if they're looking at returning to normalcy, then we must then zero in on the consumer acceptance issue raised by the CEO from Hitachi just now. Is it only consumer acceptance that's a challenge? If the owners of big businesses themselves are saying, well, we want our employees back in, we want to see employees, we want to see customers walking in, it is very likely then that the persons who are capable, whether they have the desire now or not, but the persons with the pockets to fund anything themselves aren't convinced that we should be transacting business in a digital environment the way that the fintech community wants to do. The speaker after me will, I undoubtedly, raise issues related to why is it that he went to Jamaica. And I will posit to say I'm from Jamaica, and we also have our own challenges. So I'm sure he would tell you that there are other things that he would like to see done in Jamaica. So it's not just a consumer acceptance thing. We need to get the leaders of industry, the various business leaders, the chambers of commerce, for example, to realize that they also need to be drivers of this. In the Bahamas, we have been working with and I should clarify who we is. I am the program manager for digital transformation currently for the government of the Bahamas. And one of the ways that I see to advance fintech is actually public-private partnership. Because as you said earlier, one of the issues is trust. And then you now have to zero in on KYC. Who is likely to be the entity that is going to validate, verify categorically the identity of persons? Not the business people. That's going to be the state. So therefore, there needs to be some public-private partnership. Digital ID is being touted. It's recently implemented in Jamaica. Bahamas looking at doing their thing. Bahamas has started their move. Trinidad is also on the train. So that needs to be a key component. In the Bahamas, we have been looking, for example, at digital insurance. Why does your insurance certificate have to be in your car? So you see, this is not just about digital payments, which is where a lot of persons are focused. And then if your insurance is no longer in your car, but it's on your device, then it also impacts how you interface with, for example, the road traffic department. Now they would also have to change. So you see how the impact of fintech is permeating and changing everything. So we need to really broaden the conversation and widen the scope of the stakeholders that we are engaging. Thank you.
More speaker, Aldwyn, you're my neighbor here.
Hey, neighbor, how you doing? So, I've been listening to Maria, and she's evaluating on my rebuttal. I'm not going to rebuttal anybody, but I would say, I do have a different point of view. And the issue is not the people. I hear all the time, the people's not going to accept, this change, or they're familiar with cash. Listen, every 60-year-old I know, 70-year-old I know, my grandmom, my moms, they send me a WhatsApp message, 7 a.m. every morning, like clockwork. Jesus love you. I don't know if they have like this old people group and they get all these WhatsApp messages, but they do, right?
Agree.
18, 90, so no offense to anyone who's 60 or 70. I'm just saying, they do send that message. So, I just don't get this whole the people is not ready thing. The people who's not ready is our leaders. It's our government. It's the one that controls the decision, right? If you look at countries that are moving forward, the decision that, the government makes are in the interest of the people, right? I recently, 2 weeks ago, was on the Joint Select Committee, and Maria, the reason it got traction is because, I say inflammatory things. And you don't hear me? That's the man trying to keep me down. So, the issue is the decisions that we are not making, especially in Trinidad. We are afraid to make a decision because we don't understand, right? I'm not going to get into it, but I saw a newspaper article 2 days ago, and everything about that article was fair. I'm not going to call the minister's name, all right? But it's just fair because you don't understand. You mean to tell me in the US, they don't have proper security around digital payments or digital check cashing? Check cashing was around when I was in college. And that's like 2007. Digital check cashing. And you're talking about security. Do the research. Hire the right people. This is not a decision that someone who doesn't understand needs to make. Put the right people around you and make the right decision. That's our problem, right? Our problem is you have, I'm going to use a big word here, hackatocracy. People with the least amount of information talking the most about what is going on. If we have all these intelligent people that, Gate and all these people educated them, let's find out from them how we could bring technology to help our situation, rather than someone who can't even use WhatsApp telling me what I need to do when it comes to technology. So my position is simple, right? I hear the noise, but I'm hard-headed. I'm from Point Fortin. I think that, once we give the people the opportunity, it's going to work. In 2017, the least organized, I would say, ministry or state agency, the judiciary, digitally organized, that is, came to us and said, listen, we have, 27 courts, and, we have a big problem. When a matter is heard in a court, all the information is stored in a drawer. So you can't have access to that information if you don't go exactly back to that specific court. How can we digitize this? The Chief Justice heard everything from regulations to, you need to hire a company to do research. It took us 6 months to build court pay. And I can say since then, we haven't had one failure. Hundreds of millions of dollars paid from people that is all across the country. They walk into a Massey store, buy a WePay top-up, and pay someone across the island. But yet still, no one understands that, listen, understand we have a problem, we have brilliant minds, address the problem, bring a result or a solution to fix our need. We don't need to look to crimson logic. Anthony, you're here. Do the research. Crimson logic. What you doing? Don't play that. Hey, stop. Not yet. So this is in Jamaica. We were just demonstrating the use of technology in Jamaica, where we are about to launch a new product over there. It was supposed to be at the end of my speech, but
Hmm.
yes, you wanted to show it now. But the point I was making with Crimson Logic, they're from Singapore, right? You guys traveled recently. We come in and we use a product out of Jamaica. Amber Technologies built the passport thing. I can tell you, I know personally, there's a guy called Aaron Bessel right here in Trinidad that built one. And we won't even look at him because we are so familiar with looking outside. And we have all the skill set right here. And guess what? Both technologies failed us, right? As a matter of fact, the Crimson Logic technology haven't even made it to the public. This was the e-vaccine thing. But this is our problem. The people that makes these decisions make it based on their understanding. And their understanding is value comes from Singapore or Canada. And as Maria just told you, Singapore and Canada look for us for value. Developers in Google is Trinidadians. Developers in Facebook is Jamaicans. But the people that makes these decisions locally are looking for solutions outside. So, I could keep going on and on, but I think I give Mr. Wilson enough material for Sunday Express.
So we've heard the first round of first volley or first round of presentations, and of course we see some different poles of the arguments now arising: the role of government, from private sector opportunities and challenges, and all of that. And maybe we'll open with Anthony, since he was kickoff speaker, and he spoke of the scope, the potential for fintechs being something like $26.5 trillion. And with an annual growth rate of 6%. It's a global number.
Yeah.
And we're hearing now in the Caribbean, what is our potential and how are we embracing it? And we're hearing some challenges. Could you expand on that?
Well, I want to couple from, but again, I'm no fintech expert. I look at things from the global context and where the technology is going. So I'm giving you my humble opinion. I feel that fintech can bring some improvement in social issues and issues around payment and government services. But I don't know if it has the scale, and Aldwyn will challenge that a little bit, in terms of just for Trinidad and Tobago. It's really true value of fintech, and that is a regional context. And Maria alluded to the point about standardization and legislation. How do we get the central banks working together across the region? Interesting enough, in 2018, I did a presentation just before I left Republic Bank, but that'll be 2017, about systemic risk and the need for some standard collaboration amongst central bank regulations or regulators across the region. And it's really in preparation for these type of services to move on. I think, and I want to support Aldwyn in the context. I mean, I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts about some of the leadership issues, but I think they require what I call a Caribbean leadership vision. I think we underscore the value and the importance of the Caribbean people. I mean, in case anyone that you guys not aware, the population of the Caribbean, both English speaking, well, not both, English speaking French and Spanish, is close to 45 million. That's huge. That's huge opportunity. So in that context, Ambassador, I'm talking about is how do we create that standardization of regulations? How do we establish standardization in terms of even security and privacy? So as you move different payments across, data residency comes at a key point, because they're going to move from one region to the next country, and that legislation has to be standardized in the context of that. So it's in that context that I made my statement.
So Anthony, we're now virtualizing the banking experience, for example. We're, instead of going into a branch, open an account, transact and invest, you simply rely entirely on this device, which opens with a facial scan, there's an app, QR code, and this is your life. So if it's not in your hand, if you lose it, here's a risk again. If you lose this, you lose your identity, how do you get this back? Because this is a finite world. We're hearing about the metaverse and new ways of experiencing all of this. And this is a finance that is virtualized. that challenge from the information perspective, as you shared with us this morning, some thoughts on that. Could you reflect on that for us?
Ambassador, let me just share context. I'm in Montreal now, and I have my account in BMO. And BMO actually is going into a process of trying to reduce the branches because the volume is relatively low. I can go in a branch and play small goal with my stepson inside there because probably have 1 or 2 people there. All right. A lot of the transaction is on your phone. I also have another account with TD, and I can look at both accounts on one app, right, which is the open banking concept, right? So it's where the world is moving, and I think it's now is the time for the leaders regionally to position the Caribbean in that space.
Ambassador, I don't know if I could add to Anthony's
Sure,
point,
go ahead.
just to answer your question.
Mhm.
I guess I'll ask you back a question, right? You say, security is on your phone, right? If today you lose your phone right now,
Dead.
oh, hang on, but you get a new phone, right?
Okay.
And you add back your Google account, would you not get all your emails back?
Yes, I did.
All your WhatsApps, right?
Mhm.
It's not stored on your phone. Your banking information isn't stored on your phone. Your phone is just a gateway. And I think that's the concept that we need to debunk immediately.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
information is stored on your phone. It's stored on a secure server
Mhm.
that's in that institution. And it's actually safer, right? When I demonstrated that tap to pay, in Jamaica, I'll mention a place, let's say it. The Scammer Central, right? They say Aldwyn, I see
Yeah,
a
it was-
bunch of scammers
Yes.
looking at that. I said, no, this is not Iron Show, right? You know what I'm talking about. If I lose my wallet, right? Someone here could pick up my card, they could take that number and try to get as much transactions done. They could actually go somewhere and try to use it at an ATM, get as much as you done. I lose my phone. My phone is locked. You can't get into my phone. And then I find out I lost my phone. I go online on a PC and lock the entire account. When I get a new phone, I log back in and now I have access. So it's actually more secure than having a piece of, physical card or, device that if you lose it, that's it right there. So the whole notion of just being, easily accessed on a phone, if you just compare it to your current data, WhatsApp, Facebook,
So I think, Anthony, the clarification of what is the physical hardware, the device, versus the usage, I think that is a paradigm change that we have, that you can have different experiences,
Yeah.
using
That's where the
these
education
modalities.
comes in.
Exactly.
That's where the education comes in, right? So
The-
even understanding, what is the cloud? I remember making a presentation to a corporate. This was a corporate, not the 6-day or 7. I can't say 6-day because I'm not that far from there anymore. The next generation or the before us generation, this was a corporate, fairly large, and it was given some solutions. And when we said it has to go on the cloud, they're like, cloud, cloud? No. And like the internet just kind of zapped a little bit. And they say, see, this is why we can't use the cloud. And it's an education. There's an education that needs to be done. But let's just be specific here. Because I don't go in the bank. I do everything on my phone, right here with Trinidadian banks. I pay I can't remember the last time I used a check. I pay everybody through online banking. But the whole idea of fintech is making that available to those who are not in the banking sector. I mean, you hear this quote all the time from Bill Gates. We need to do banking. We don't need banks. And that's the truth. So the whole, we have to always go back to why were fintechs created in the first place. And it was really to give access to those people that a bank didn't want to set up bricks and mortar. They were too far, or they were too low income, that they didn't see them as important. So we have to think of that context too. How do we make this a solution for inclusiveness? And I think, we can't move away from that's what fintech brought. And then it became profitable and everybody jumped on it because now there was money involved.
So we're also in an environment, and we've kind of heard Anthony say he walked out with a couple of dollars in his pocket.
67.
I never used it, and I went to Atlanta 17 months ago, and I had $2. I had $302. I spent the $300, and I walked around for 17 months with $2 in my wallet, because everything I did was without cash.
Yeah.
And if you went into a store and you tried to use cash, it caused a great disruption. So in this cashless society that we're moving into, there are some people being excluded because they don't have the access to it. So we see some movements, for example, in Jamaica with the digital currency. What are your thoughts on coordinating the regulatory environment to be more facilitative to this, maybe across the region, because each country is doing its own thing in a fragmented way? How could you pull that together? The regulatory consciousness, practical applications, to make the landscape more ease of adoption.
So first I'll start with, you can't go out there without first starting what is close to home. So the first thing we need is collaboration across the state, right in the country, right here. So your Ministry of Legal Affairs have to talk to the Ministry of Finance, has to talk to the Ministry of Transformation, has to talk to the Ministry of Labor, because it's an ecosystem, and the central bank. But if everyone is doing their own thing, going in their own direction, then this is why execution isn't done. So let's start there first. Now, if we could get that right in each country, and we start to talk about regional, first I'll put Mia Motley as the head of this, this task. Not because she's a great female, but because she's a great prime minister. So let's start with that. You need to get one person to start the collaboration. Then we need to get the central banks have an association, I believe. Tony, we know from the banking sector, where they meet and they have these conferences and we have all these great panel discussions. But what we really need is a task force that says, how are we all going to make our region competitive? And then we could put some real money behind that. And it's not just fintech, it's not just technology, it's also on sustainability, which is the next move, right? So to really get this going, we really have to get our governments and our heads of state to stop thinking silos, stop trying to be a king in your own kingdom, and start thinking, the only way the Caribbean region is going to grow, going to get competitive, is we have to move as one. So you tell me, you've been around a little longer than me. I've been hearing about these things for as long as I'm alive. I don't know if there's a real solution except better leaders. That's what I would say.
All right, so obviously leadership matters, but the role of the private sector as a driver versus the role of government is critical too, because in other places, I think that companies are moving way ahead of our ability to regulate them. And the transition is rapid. Now, we heard this morning about the rate of change.
Yep.
And the rate of change is changing. Not just that there's change, the rate at which is changing is faster. So how can a linear approach to having a task force and regulations and all of that get us where we have to be to compete against the world?
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. I mean, this morning I was looking at making an investment and I was looking for something to match a loan. And I'm thinking 10 years, I am really thinking 10 years. None of these companies might be in existence 10 years from now. So this is what we have to think about. It's not just all the changes, but the rate of change. I mean, I do valuations as part of my services, and I tell people, no, I'm afraid to put perpetuity because I don't even know if some of the companies we're valuing now, unless they change their business model, unless they're really looking at life differently, are going to exist in 10 years. So the honest, I mean, I'd love to hear the other panelists of what this solution could possibly be, but it's for people to wake up and realize what is going to be the effect if we don't do it.
So we heard in terms of fintech adoption change. We heard of Ansa McCall this morning mentioned starting a digital bank. And therefore, the entire banking platform and environment is outside of the realm we're accustomed to. And if they're successful, they'll be taking assets, deposits, and whatever they'll be taking will be taken away from the existing sector in banking. So we're coming now to a new normal. And I heard Michael earlier talk about transition to this new normal and the issue of the perception of risk when organizations move to this environment. that it could cause problems like in Belize, he said, de-risking. At one point, Belize lost their connectivity to the
fintech.
global financial markets, not due to fintech, but due to other reasons, because people are concerned about money laundering and other things, right? But the issue of de-risking, we are in the Enterprise Risk Management Conference, appears as one of the risks. And I heard Michael mention Belize, and he talked about this issue. But Michael, how can we, at this point, understand the issues and quickly respond and make the change on the regulatory side and on the business side, business use cases? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with Maria. Well, you recall that I spoke about that. There's definitely a need for public-private engagement. However, I would go a little bit further than say that the market is regional. So I would agree that we are small states, but I'm sure that the entrepreneur on the panel will tell you that some of his customers are outside of the Caribbean. When you look at digital Haiti, we're not even talking about fintech now. When digital Haiti, well, a few years ago, I don't know about the current statistics, but digital Haiti made more than all of the other digital locations in the Caribbean combined. In the poorest country in the Caribbean. So one must ask, if one thinks, where does the money come from? And the majority of the income that they made was not from persons inside Haiti. So let that sink in for a minute. So now imagine if 90% of WePay's revenue was from outside of the Caribbean. What would that look like?
All right, so
I want you to
let's ask the panel.
think
He'll be
about.
I
smiling
think
more.
what nobody said, oh,
I'm
we'll be
not gonna say
smiling
you're
much more than
smiling
he's
more, if
smiling now.
that's possible.
Right,
So I think that was my question.
that was your question.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So
But
I can tell you, right? That's I mean, in Trinidad, right, which is one of our larger markets, we are a local-based processor. That means when we process someone's credit card, that's not a Trinidad credit card, we get money in US dollars. So we have some large customers. I saw one of them leaving when I got here. And the reason we have these large conglomerates is because we give them their money in US dollars. And I'm saying we provide value that local companies are looking for. Understand this, right? I'm going back to a point that you asked Maria and Anthony. You said, the fintechs would be taking, or this technology space would be taken away from the existing banking space. In the US, Cash App, which is not a bank, PayPal, Stripe, they process more money than the largest bank. The largest bank is Bank of America. Actually, I'm lying. The largest bank in America right now, or in the world right now, is Nubank, which is a neobank from Brazil. They went public in December. I think they got like 37 billion at the IPO, right? They only exist on the phone, Nubank, N-U-B-A-N-K. And this is hard for non-banking people to conceptualize. I was in DC a month ago. I was actually representing the Caribbean at the Bankers Conference, right? And they asked me about the Caribbean. I was on stage with like Wells Fargo and BB&T. And they said, listen, in the Caribbean, right, how you guys move money around, right? What is the network, right? Is it SWIFT? Because SWIFT actually spoke before me. And SWIFT said, listen, in 2025, they're gonna have SWIFT 2.0, where you're gonna have bank settlements in, 15 minutes. And then me on after SWIFT, I'm like, okay, I do settlements from Jamaica to Trinidad in 15 seconds. Because we provide APIs. So my banking partner in Trinidad, a banking partner in Jamaica, use my network and they move money in seconds. What we have in between is a value that measures the currency difference. So I hear we talking about a regional platform. Why is it going to be different for regulators and central banks? The value of a Jamaican dollar, the value of a Trinidad dollar. What is going to be the unit of value? Are you going to accept 1 TT to 1 JA? Are you going to accept 1 JA to 1 TT?
Not so easy.
It's not going to happen, right? That's a difficult pill to swallow for the Trinidad government if you're going to say, hey, we're going to value a TT to a Jamaican dollar. But if you have a platform that allows you to convert it at what is currently accepted, the US exchange rate,
Yeah, but that's how it works.
then you get it to work. That's what WePay does. We don't need, to do all this, having Jamaica and Trinidad have a kumbaya session with central banks, because we let the transfer take place at a value that they understand. 6.4 for TT, 155 for Jamaican dollars. And that's the value of having technology. We put that in the middle of what they expect on both sides, and then there's no issue. And I think that's what this region needs to kind of understand. You could have a marriage of technology with what's acceptable for the progression of the space, and not say it has to be the government or it has to be the central bank coming together, because that's not going to happen.
Precisely. I think when you talk about the global payment system, which controls the flow of funds across the world, trade, for capital investments, and so on, and you'd mentioned the traditional systems like putting money through SWIFT system using correspondent banking mechanisms, and that those traditional views of how money is transferred, Fed fund system, system and so on, that interface has been through the regulated channels. Then the examples now of firms operating directly without that interface creates a whole new environment in which a lot of transactions now in the payment system are shifted outside of that. You could very simple things like going to a Western Union, going online and transferring money in a couple seconds from where I'm in Atlanta, and somebody receives the money immediately. Here in Jamaica, never having to pay a fee for a bank, just a couple, maybe $2 to transfer the money. So more of the traditional value of banking are reflected in the international payment system across the globe, changing into an environment. Now, to ask you to comment on the advent, of course, of blockchain. Blockchain technology to create the authentication and to really create new space. But for the technical side, could you comment on the emergence of this new technology for the drive shift from the traditional banking to this other world of movement of money across?
For sure. So, I think the fundamental thing you need to get with blockchain technology is just the way that information is shared, right? So it's actually not brand new. It's been around for a while. The whole corresponding banking thing, it was your bank in Trinidad, I don't trust the bank in Jamaica, so we use a trusted central bank, which is Bank of America or Citibank. So between the bank in Trinidad, the bank in Jamaica, the trusted entity was the corresponding bank. With blockchain technology, the way the information is recorded, it's on a ledger that I could see an entry, you could see an entry. So it gives transaction clear visibility. So that's the real value of blockchain. It's not the cryptocurrencies, which is the next topic, but it's the fact that I could trust that this transaction that took place on this side is actually legitimate. I'm not going to be in a problem where I pay out Maria in Jamaica, and then when I reach out to Aldwyn, he's like, man, I didn't make that transaction. It's on a ledger that you can see. So the value of the blockchain technology is this immutable ledger that everyone can look in and see, and that's the value.
All right, so thank you for these inputs and stimulating ideas, and we're going to use the next 15 minutes to open the floor for some questions, and I'm sure Ken is just waiting to kick off with a question for this panel. Right ahead, Ken.
Maybe I can just yell. So listen, why all these conversations are being had? Technologies advanced, yeah? be a bit,
So I feel as though I'm going to perform now. So how do we bridge that gap? How do you can't prevent technology from moving forward. So like what you're talking about, Aldwyn, with blockchain, and where, you know, entities like yourself in the US is moving, and technology is moving faster than regulation. Fintech or non-banking apps is moving faster. Here's my concern. The unbanked are usually the most vulnerable, my words, less educated, more risk averse. The greater the technology challenge that exists, the more difficult it will be to bring them on board. It will be a much harder sell. What can you do? I mean, you're the subject matter expert, so you could tell me.
I could ask.
So
It's really simple. And I think I mentioned this at the Joint Select Committee. You know, you see Aldwyn, right? And you see a tech company. That's all we really are. We're the tech and the fintech. We still need to have a bank that provides us with the guidelines for onboarding that customer, the regulatory framework for managing that customer's money. I don't touch money. All this hundreds of millions of dollars we process, actually a bank that processes it. Our job is to make the customer experience easier. Our job is to get their information easier, but it's still a bank. And that's where you say fintech. It's not just for the tech. So if you talk about the people's, you know, in charge, what they need to understand is, listen, don't see just the tech. Understand the financial institution that's behind us, and look at that and find out from the regulator, is this solution that's being provided protecting the citizens from the people that's managing the money, which is the bank, right? We have a bank behind us. In Jamaica, we have a bank. In Trinidad, we have a bank. In the US, we have the 5th largest bank behind us. We have to adhere to their framework and rails for onboarding and managing, you know, the customers.
right, but the point I want to sort of like bring home is the folks to use these applications. Let's consider them the unbanked ones to begin with. Let's focus on those for a second. The ones who are using online banking, we are already there, right? So we wouldn't wait on the regulators to build the, you know, the legal framework to effect some of these things, right? Let's focus on the unbanked.
Yeah.
They are more risk averse, less technology driven, notwithstanding a grandmom and they hunting on, I'm sorry, wrong word, WhatsApping and stuff like this.
Wow.
But the more technology advances, the more technology moves and stuff. It's in my head, it's going to be more difficult to bring some folks on board.
I see the reverse though.
Yeah.
You think so?
So yeah, as the
Okay, well,
technology
educate me.
gets more advanced, the customer experience gets simpler and better.
Exactly.
So if you look at
But no, but
PayPal,
you're right. But it's the selling of that customer experience.
So if you look at PayPal, right now we're saying on his side, the same could happen. By the time I say send, before I even turn to Anthony, it's in his wallet, right? It's instantaneous. It's very easy to show someone that. And if you look at their user interface, it's also very simple, right? So that's really what fintech actually makes it easier in my books for those that are not as sophisticated to understand, because the complex technology behind makes it simpler. If you think of a form, when you go to a bank, even now, it's difficult to open a bank account. But when you're looking at biometrics and the technology which has advanced so far, someone, you know, onboarding, it's done in you know, they can understand, I take a picture, everybody knows how to take a selfie. So I think the technology has actually done the reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah?
So if I could jump in here as well.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll tell you a story. My wife and I went to a bank in Jamaica. I tried to add her to, so my wife is Guyanese, I'm Jamaican. I tried to add her to a bank account. They wanted to know so many things about her, and we should go and find other persons who had accounts in the bank to recommend her. So in other words, I should go out and say, Aldwyn, hey,
I gotta
Wait,
open a bank account.
you have a bank account over here. You can refer my wife. No, at the
$2,000.
same time, this is the kicker. My 2-year-old son is sitting in her lap. So I said, okay, what would I need to do to add him to an account? So the guy says, well, he wasn't born here, right? No, but he's Jamaican. Yes. He has a Jamaican passport. Yes. Okay. So you are his parents. You two could refer him and we could add him to the account. Years old. Now I posit to you, Ken, that is a huge part of the challenge that the unbanked, and sometimes we say underbanked, have. The hurdles that they have to jump in order to be able to open that first account. And again, that's where the state comes in, because you might say, but the bank sets the policies, but the state allows them to. That's why you have a central bank. And those are the players that really need to have a serious, robust conversation.
And what is your risk?
So
What is your risk?
We have a question. Just hold for a sec.
Yes, I just want to find out two things. We speak about the unbankable or the unbanked. Have we understood that people use technology, even in Haiti? They know how to use technology. Have we gone into the part where they understand finance or understand banking and the movement of money? Because they know how to go on it and press send, and they understand that it went. Do they understand the whole process of finance, that structure, and how it comes down and what part they play and how they are affected or not affected? So that's a part that in the conversation I'm hearing, I'm not hearing us speak about that education.
I would
in
answer that question.
finance. No, I don't want us to get lost on what I'm asking. So
Yeah.
don't jump me in. The question is, have we understood? We call them unbankable.
Yeah.
There's a serious issue of education in finance. And I want to say in the region possibly, but let me speak for Trinidad and more so maybe Tobago. But I'm saying, have we understood that? Because we also spoke about, your information is out there and I can go on a...
So, all right, so the question that comes from this then is, have we been able to communicate to the general population what all of the complexity is? Do they really understand that? And the question might be, I'll give this to Aldwyn to respond.
Yeah, I will let him respond and then I have another part to him too of how
all right,
the gadget is.
All right, we take the first question. All right.
So I will answer it in,
Go ahead, Aldwyn.
I'll answer it in literally one sentence. There's a number of problems that's in front of us, and financial literacy is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
What we're fixing in the first instance is, building one of the steps. After it's there, then we can address financial literacy, or we could actually do the other way around. We can start training. But the thing is, we must take that first step. So this is step one. And it could be, we should have probably did financial literacy first and then do the solution. But, right now, this is one step of, 4 or 5. Financial literacy.
That's the entrepreneurial step. That's the direction of commerce.
Right.
That's the money-making part.
Money leads it.
But we have lost, the first step really in the entire society would be, what is the education that we are driving our people to, our human capital for development? The other thing is you spoke about, and this is really, the gadget doesn't have your information.
We have 2 minutes left.
And I would love to have them. The gadget isn't your, the gadget has, somebody else has a question? You have a question? I'd want to give way to him so quickly.
Yeah.
You said the gadget is not on the information is not on your gadget. I'm in an airport and my phone is lost. And I don't have any information because we are so dependent on the gadget. Tell me my next move.
Go by a payphone. Nothing. So
Police.
I can't move.
why
I
you
can't move. I don't have anything.
Go to your line.
The phone control your foot.
I'm technology crippled. You took I lost my
So
gadget.
this is the thing, right? So
right.
I'll make it quick. You can log on to a PC. Every account that you have on your phone is accessible via PC. Every account.
Yep.
All right, so in the interest of time, we have one more, which we can take half a question, right? We can just take half a question very quickly. We might not have time to indulge.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
I understand that it may be very easy for the government and the leaders and the decision makers to be the go-to scapegoat, right? No offense to the panel. In my own ventures, my department, my team, we have been searching for ways to implement and try to advocate for digital
Give us a
transformation.
question.
Quick question.
Give us a question.
What is the piece of legislation that is preventing you from doing what you're doing? We have found the Electronic Transactions Act proclaimed since 2012, which facilitates, gives you the opportunity to do a lot of what you want to do. What is preventing you?
There's no legislation that's needed. It's just will. Political will. Political will. There's no legislation that's needed.
I think his
All right,
point
so
is,
we've had a question, we've had the answer, short answers. Thank you very much for those
But I
brief
would-
answers.
yeah.
A quick roundup from.
no, I was just gonna say, he's right, the e-money order does actually allow a lot to be done.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you there.
Then Anthony, last words, quick words.
I think we need to also understand that the regulators shift a lot of stuff to the bankers where they should be doing that. And I'm saying this one as an ex-banker. So the power of digital signatures is critical as you move towards a digital society.
Good, and over to you, Aldwyn.
Yeah, I think e-signatures was passed in 2013. I think they're just looking for like the practice order right now.
Practice.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, the regulations are there in Trinidad. Open banking could operate where the bank provides the framework. So you're right, it's not regulations. It's political will.
Right, so
And that's all I'll say.
All right, so we end on this note that I think we have advanced the understanding of the topic of fintech. There's so much more we could be talking about and so many more questions, but thank you for your active participation and for sharing your knowledge with us.
You're
And
welcome.
we move on to the rest of the conference. Back to you, Chairman.
William.
No?
Oh, picture.
Bank Ambassador Ralph Thomas, who moderated the panel. Let's thank him with a round of applause, please. And our panelists, Anthony Subero, Maria Daniel, Michael Hamilton virtually, and Aldwyn Wayne of VP. I know you could go on a long time with that panel because there's so many issues that arose where that is concerned. And I agree with Maria to a large extent.